Last night's presidential debate saw many firsts. For one, the first time a sitting and a former president went head-to-head. But what do you know about the first televised presidential debate? WFMY News 2's Manning Franks took us all the way back to 1956.
It's time for a history lesson.
In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt said in his inaugural that this generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny.
Most people believe that the first televised presidential debate was between President John F. Kennedy and President Richard Nixon on CBS. However,
Face the Nation.
The unofficial first one actually dates back to 1956.
You're about to see the widow of the late Democratic President, Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt, and the only woman to have served in both the House and Senate of the United States, Mrs. Margaret Chase Smith. Face the Nation with questions from veteran correspondents representing the nation's press.
The two highly respected women squared off on Face the Nation only 2 days before Election Day, each representing their respective candidate. Eleanor Roosevelt as a proxy for Democratic challenger Adlai Stevenson, and Smith representing Republican incumbent Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Democratic presidents, together with leaders of our allies, chose Dwight D. Eisenhower to lead our nation to victory in World War II.
Candidate on the Democratic ticket, Adlai Stevenson, has suggested that the draft is obsolete.
The 30-minute debate focused heavily on foreign policy and the Great Suez Crisis in the Middle East, which had occurred only a few days prior during the Cold War era.
Standing together with the dictator of Egypt and the communist Soviet, it's an odd situation to find the United States in.
Mrs. Roosevelt, may I interrupt right there? Wonder why you say we're standing with the Kremlin and with Egypt
Because
in the matter.
There's no one else in the UN with us.
Our policy is against aggression.
So who won the debate? Who argued policy better? Well, it all depends on who you asked and who watched it. One thing is for certain, though, it paved the way for presidential debates.
Wow, that is so interesting to see.
When you look at that
and
compared
so
to
sweet
today.
And kind.
We've devolved.
Now it's been a little right.
May I interrupt you? Why, certainly, yes. I watched the whole 30-minute debate. It was actually really fascinating because it was the first of its kind from a presidential standpoint. Obviously, they were not the ones running for president, but they represented their parties in that 2 days prior to the election. So it was just fascinating to watch that take hold.
Even the moderator is smiling a little bit. The ones yesterday were very, stern. So there's a lot of differences up to today.
Oh, absolutely, too. Especially when you see about the policy of the 50s is different than the policy of the 2020s. It's like the things they were talking about different, but also similar. It's like, what is it? What is that thing where it's like we all the history comes back and repeats itself?
I just miss the manners.
Yes, me too.
I mean, when the one woman interrupted, she said, "Now, excuse me, can I interrupt you here?"
Of course.
I mean,
can you imagine Biden and Trump
the
doing
manners that we have seemed to forget?
And the transatlantic accents.
Yeah, and I so for my 2 cents today, I did something on the rules and what candidates can and can't do now. And it's just interesting that they were like sitting side by side and doing their things.
They were so close too.
Yeah, and
they had notes too. So
yeah, because now CNN said they had to mute the mic of the person that's not speaking so they don't interrupt each other, and they're asking permission to interrupt.
Which I thought was both, beneficial, but also kind of hurt for the theatrics of it, right? When they muted the microphones yesterday.
But it can be an all-out crazy event.
We saw it 4 years ago.
Thanks for telling that story, Manny.
Thank y'all.